Hello everyone, I am the Bandit Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews under the deck text. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a new commander from the Final Fantasy Commander Precons, Cloud X Soldier. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel and no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck text, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You can also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Cloud is a 4/4 human soldier mercenary with haste for 2 generic, 1 red, 1 green, and 1 white. When he enters, you can attach up to 1 equipment you control to him. If that weren't enough to signpost that he's an equipment-centric commander, his attack trigger has you draw a card for each equipped attacking creature you control. Then, if he has at least 7 power, you create 2 treasure tokens. In order to make the most of Cloud, I included my favorite type of equipment, which are those that create a creature token that auto-equips when entering the battlefield. Which is quite fitting, since the new set will include a bunch of these equipment with the job select ability, which is similar to Living Weapon and for Mirrodin. Since these equipment kill 2 birds with 1 stone, I figured at least 20% of the deck should run them, regardless of if they're powerful or not on their own. This deck will not be super high powered anyways, considering it's between bracket 1 and bracket 2. However, it's incredibly fun and synergistic. So some of the weaker Living Weapon type equipment shine because of how they help the deck run. Of those included in the deck, we have Mandibular Kite, Bitterthorn Nissus Animus, Nettlecyst, Batterskull, Colossal Dreadmask, and Cauldron Complete. These all create 0/0 Phyrexian Germs when entering and then get attached before state-based actions are checked. The deck wants to do a lot of things with tokens too, such as copying them. Unfortunately, these die unless you have toughness pumps in play, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Of course the deck has pump effects in it, it's aggro after all. In any case, these equipment have their base uses while others like Bitterthorn shine by ramping us. Nettlecyst providing a massive pump, and Batterskull, Colossal Dreadmask, and Cauldron Complete being absolute bombs to equip onto Cloud. Hexgold Halberd, Bladehold Warwhip, Hexgold Hoverwings, Kemba's Banner, Dragonwind Glider, Hexplate Wallbreaker, and Sylvok Battlechair are in a similar vein but better since they create 2/2 rebels, meaning that they won't die to state-based actions when unequipped without static pump effects. That being said, these tend to be more expensive than their Living Weapon counterparts precisely because they create a 2/2 instead of a 0/0. Of those available, I found these to be the best ones for the deck because they all provide so much value. Hexgold Halberd gives good aggressive keywords, Bladehold Warwhip reduces equip cost and gives double strike, Hexgold Hoverwings pumps equipped creatures and gives flying, Kemba's Banner has the potential to give a massive pump, Dragonwind Glider gives a decent pump with evasion, Hexplate Wallbreaker gives an extra combat step, and Sylvok Battlechair gives a decent pump with trample. As of the making of this video, I edited the last bit since way more equipment with job selects were previewed, specifically Dragonwind Lance, Dancer's Chakrams, Machinist's Arsenal, and Samurai's Katana. While these only create a 1/1 when entering, the casting cost is pretty on par if you are casting a creature, which makes it fairer than for Mirrodin. These have the best so far as of the making of this video, since Swing In with Flyers and Tramplers can do some work beyond helping Cloud draw us a ton of cards. Of note are Dancer's Chakrams and Machinist's Arsenal. The Chakrams give the same stats to our commander, and the Arsenal gives an absolutely massive pump since the deck has so many artifacts. When I said I had to wait another week to release this video, I meant it. Barb Spike, Citizen's Crowbar, Fractal Harness, and Wolf Rider Saddle don't have a flavor mechanic like Living Weapon for Mirrodin or Job Select. That being said, they're relatively cheap to cast in the early game and won't have a token that dies when unequipped. Fractal Harness is particularly great once a creature has a +1/+1 counter on it, since it doubles them on combat, which is nothing to scoff at. There's plenty more equipment with similar effects, but I found these to be the best when testing, at least for what I want in this particular deck and what it's to be doing. As for how we're going to make the most of these subpar equipment, we can't go wrong with the classics like Pure Steel Paladin and Stram Senior Artificer. Themselves being cheap to cast, getting these early on is amazing when we also have those cheap to cast equipment. As a bonus, the Paladin lets us equip for free once Metalcraft is met, which will be quite easy here. Tribute to the World Tree and Watley Radiant Champion make the most of the equipment creating creature tokens when entering, since they trigger off of all creatures whether they're tokens or not. So long as Watley survives the turn around the table, her emblem is all but guaranteed. The enchantment won't always draw us a card though, but that's okay because the pump is also very useful here, especially with the Phyrexian Germs. Ministerius and Orang Frostfang provide card advantage through combat just like Cloud. Minas Tirith doesn't take up a slot for being a land that can tap for mana, and the Snake provides extra card advantage for giving our attackers Death Touch. If they also happen to have First Strike and or Double Strike, then they will definitely trade in battle. Lurkeray Tower is included due to how many cards this deck can draw into, even if just off of our commander and a decent board. It doesn't take up a slot in the deck, so it's definitely worth running. Doubling tokens with Mondrak Glory Dominus, Doubling Season, and Elspeth Stormslayer is another way to make the most of those otherwise subpar equipment. Granted, without a toughness boosting static effect, the Phyrexian Germs will just die, but that doesn't mean we can't capitalize on copying those 2/2 Rebels or other tokens. I chose these three because the deck isn't so focused on tokens and because Mondrak can become indestructible. Doubling Season also affects counters, and all of Elspeth's loyalty abilities are relevant. But these token doublers get even more crazy when combined with Firion Wild Rose Warrior and Bloodforged Battle Axe. Firion is almost like these three cards since it's doubling a living weapon type equipment will give us another of the creature tokens it creates. Sure, it gets sacrificed at the end of the turn, but we can still swing in with the creature it created, equip to it, or equip it to another bigger creature since the equip cost is reduced by 2 generic. Bloodforged Battle Axe copying itself makes things get out of hand very quickly. We're almost guaranteed to have all of our creatures be equipped at that point, or equip a ton of copies onto a single creature. Kodama of the West Tree synergizes amazingly with these living weapons because those tokens are essentially modified by default. Getting to ramp for a basic land whenever any of them get through is incredibly powerful, especially if we're copying those equipment with Firion. Kodama is so good here that a whopping 4 of each basic snow-covered lands is included for good measure. This might seem like a lot of basics for a 3-colored deck, but don't worry, it's still running multiple type lands like all 3 Snow Duels, all 3 Shocklands, and Jetmir's Garden for good measure. Especially since you know I'm going to be running my favorite ramp package of Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits into the North, and Rampant Growth. With so many snow-covered lands in the deck, Into the North is essentially the best one here. In any case, the deck has no issues with mana acceleration, whether synergistic or otherwise. Just like Sol Ring and the 9 fetch lands. No, it doesn't go in every deck, but with so many generic costs here, it's worth running, even if it's the only mana rock here. Same with the fetch lands. If you don't have them, you don't need to run them for the deck to work. As I've been mentioning throughout the entire video, we can also make the most of these free yet weak creature tokens by static pump effects. To that end, the deck is running Beastmaster Ascension and Golden Tail Trainer. Granted, these are dependent on combat, but at least the enchantment won't require attacking once it has at least 7 quest counters on it. That +5/+5 pump is no joke. While the trainer needs to attack in order for our creatures to get pumped, the pump it can give has the potential of being game ending, especially with how easy it is to pump with all of the equipment and power boosting effects in the deck. Not only that, but it can also be a mana accelerant, reducing the generic cost of our equipment spells. This is definitely one of the strongest cards in the deck. Brenor Battle Hammer provides an actual static pump, but it's just for power, meaning that it still won't be enough to keep out-equipped germs from dying to state-based actions. But that's fine because the deck can be even more aggressive this way. As a bonus, we can also pay 0 for our first equip cost per turn. Divine Visitation and March of the World Ooze do provide the type of pump effects the deck needs. Granted, they do so in an interesting way. Divine Visitation simply turns our creature tokens into 4/4 Flying Angels instead, which is quite the upgrade from 0/0 Germs, 1/1 Heroes, and 2/2 Rebels. March of the World Ooze does something similar, but instead all of our creatures will be 6/6 Oozes. Not only that, but we create 3/3 Elephants when opponents cast spells outside of their turn. 3/3 Elephants that will actually be 6/6 while we control the enchantment. Gavaning Township, Keswick Wolf Run, Slayer Stronghold, Sunhome Fortress of the Legion need to be activated to pump, but at least don't take up any slots in the deck. These are all incredibly strong, especially the first two. Giving Cloud Trample and a massive pump might be enough to eliminate a player, and Gavaning Township combined with Doubling Season is quite busted. Excalibur Sword of Eden is included solely for Cloud to eliminate opponents. This thing is essentially free to cast in this deck and then only costs 2 to equip onto Cloud, making him a 2-turn clock at minimum. With Double Strike, it might be game over, which is why, last but not least, we got Halvar, God of Battle, in the deck. The front side gives our enchanted and equipped creatures Double Strike. Not only that, but we can free equip any equipment at the beginning of combat onto any of our creatures. Absolutely busted here. Yet his front side is almost as good as his backside. Sword of the Realms is such an amazing equipment to attach onto Cloud. Not only does he get +2/+0 OM Vigilance, but when he dies he returns to our hand. And it only costs 2 to cast and 2 to equip, assuming no cost reduction effects. When playing, I cast Halvar if I'm going wide and the sword if I end up going tall. And this isn't even the best part about including Halvar in the deck. Forging the Tyrite Sword is also in here. Not only does this relatively cheap to cast saga create a treasure when entering, but it'll do so in our next draw step too. And then when it reaches the 3rd chapter, we get to tutor for Halvar. But if we already have Halvar or have other plans, we could get another equipment instead, like Bloodforged Battle Axe, Excalibur, or any other urgently needed protective equipment, like Commander's Plate, Swiftfoot Boots, Champion's Helm, and Mithril Coat. In any case, this saga is amazing here. As for these protective equipment, the deck is also running Celestial Armor and Silver Shroud Costume. While these two are similar to Mithril Coat in that they can be flashed in, the protective effect only lasts until end of turn. But that's fine enough if we're casting these in response to any targeted removal. In any case, the armor provides a static pump and evasion, while the costume provides actual unblockability, which is amazing for our aggressive commander. Same with running Rogue's Passage, the final utility land in the deck. Sometimes you just really need to guarantee a creature getting through, so why not do so with this Commander All-Star? Last but not least is Heroic Intervention to protect our board. Cyclonic Rift can't be played in brackets 1 or 2, but something like Vandal Blast can be. And with this deck, I'd honestly prefer an overloaded Cyclonic Rift than Vandal Blast because I can just recast all my things and get the benefits of doing so. But having them all get destroyed, not so much. As for the deck's own interaction, we can run into any annoying archetypes like Control, Pillow Fort, and whatnot. We're not really weak against other mid-range or combat strategies. In any case, the deck's running Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, and Stroke of Midnight for single target removal, with Guffrey Wright's History, Decimate, and Unexplained Absence for multiple single target removal, and a Blasphemous Act for the board wipe. These should be good enough to deal with anything we might come across. In any case, the golden rule of removal is that there is no more effective removal than player removal. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Cloud X Soldier. While it might seem like another equipment-focused commander, I love that I can build him around my favorite type of equipment. Could you have built him in a different way? Of course, especially since I built such a casual, low-powered deck. Even with the same strategy, you could power it up to a higher bracket. But I'm pretty happy with where it's at. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Bandit Kirby, and happy brewing.